We are now live, and this is the third annual Hollywood Kitchen Oscar special or Oscar cook along. And this, I try to have a theme every year. The first year, the theme was winners and nominees. The second year, the theme was they should have won, they didn't, and that stinks. This year, all roads lead to Edith Head, which they should have all along anyway, to be honest. And Edith Head is by far the most honored woman in Academy history, with a record-breaking 34 Academy Awards.
Excuse me, Carrie dear, there's 35 nominations.
I didn't. I'm stuck in my head.
Everyone counts, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I stand corrected. And 8 Academy Award wins, the most honored woman in Academy history, the most honored costume designer in Academy history, and I really doubt that record is ever going to be broken. So we have an all-star lineup of fantastic, knowledgeable film historians and writers and just great people on board today. And I am not going to cook today, but rather I'm going to sip coffee from my 30s depression glass in my vintage pajamas and escort people in and out of Edith's salon. Virtual salon. So welcome, Edith, and thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here on this wonderful Sunday, Oscar Sunday, one of my favorite days. It's the biggest fashion show of the year that Hollywood puts on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And no fashion show would be complete without you and without your input.
Thank you.
Yes. So we're so happy to have you today. And we've got a great lineup. I'm going to start out with Liz Locke. So I'm going to present Liz Locke to you, Edith. Liz runs a website called Cinema Sips, where she makes terrific cocktail recipes inspired by stars and movies. And she also just had published her debut novel, Follow the Sun. So I'm so honored to have you here. Meet Edith Head.
Hello, my dear. You know, I have 2 books. How to Dress for Success, and of course, The Dress Doctor. So I'm so glad that you're a writer also.
Well, thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you. And actually, the book is not out yet, but it's coming out in June 6th. So you can pre-order now. It is available for sale. But no, I'm so happy to speak with you because you have designed some of my favorite costumes. It's particularly in Elvis movies. I love Elvis movies. And I'll talk a little bit about the cocktails that I've got going on today. Because it's Oscar night, I always want to do something with champagne in it. So the first one that I've got, it's called a Serendipity, and it's from the Ritz Bar in Paris. So this is apple brandy, apple juice, simple syrup, and mint. And I shake it up well, and then I've got some champagne just to top it. So it's nice and festive, but also really refreshing. And it's over ice, so you know you can kind of sip on this through the awards show tonight. But I also wanted to make another one that really kind of celebrates Edith's work in one of my favorite films, Fun in Acapulco.
Oh, I love that film. 1963.
Yeah, I mean, Ursula Andress's costumes in that are to die for.
They're really a Technicolor feast, aren't they?
Absolutely. And the bikinis, gorgeous. I mean, you just did a phenomenal job. So I wanted to kind of make a Cadillac margarita to celebrate the king, Elvis. So this is just a really simple one. It's got añejo tequila. Let's start with a fresh shaker here. And I've got kind of a 1960s cocktail shaker here with cute little pink flamingos on it. So we've got tequila, that, and orange liqueur. I like to use a pretty nice one here. Because the flavor, you get what you pay for when it comes to the liqueurs. I always say. Same with clothing, actually. So
with everything, I think, my dear.
I know. And this is a little agave nectar and some lime juice to round it out. So that's it, pretty simple. And then we're just gonna shake it up. Kind of like Elvis's hips shaking in those dance numbers in Fun in Acapulco. And then I've got this nice Mexican glassware for that one. And that's it. So, Edith, I want to hear all about your experience with Fun in Acapulco and with some of the other Elvis movies like Blue Hawaii. I don't know if you have a favorite one that you worked on, or if it's hard to pick a favorite.
You picked a great one with Fun in Acapulco, with as I said, the highest grossing film of 1963, if you can imagine. We did some shots on location in Acapulco, but Elvis wasn't in them because he had, rumor has it, he said something derogatory, and he was banned in Mexico.
Fascinating.
Most of it at Paramount. And but I love that. I started working with Elvis in 1957. Hal Wallace had asked me to just kind of assist. You know, he was under contract to Hal Wallace. Mm-hmm. So they filmed everything at Paramount. And so we did, it was a wonderful, wonderful film. Loving You. Do you know that film?
Yeah. Yes.
So I was asked to dress the leads, and then Hal asked me to look in on Elvis's clothes, which had been pulled by his valet. And I adjusted a few of the color choices. But when you look at Elvis, you see someone who knows how to dress Elvis. No one can costume Elvis like Elvis can costume himself. He is such a charming young Southern boy. I was prepared not to like him. I fell in love with him like every other woman in the world. And you know what one of my claims to fame?
No.
Elvis kissed me right here.
Oh my.
Yes. So you made a very good choice with picking an Elvis movie. We were all heartsick when he was drafted. Do you know when they cut the locks? The Colonel sold those to his fan club. We were glad when he came back. I'll tell you. And
now, did you have to use any special materials for his dance numbers? Was it more difficult to design for, because he had some, famous hip shakes back in the day.
Certainly did. So you have to make this you would do with any costume. Mm-hmm. A costume has to move to the degree that the actor is moving in the part. Betty Davis was notorious for coming in to a fitting and rolling around, making sure everything stayed put. And she was bored. There was no one who could drop a mink like Betty Davis would drop a mink. And that comes with practice, because with that practice, it becomes natural. And that's what we want to see when we are transported to these worlds through the miracle of film.
I think mink dropping practice needs to be a thing.
So you
I also, real quick.
Choices.
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask, since I had a cocktail from the Ritz Bar in Paris, did you ever travel to Paris and meet with any of the couturiers of the time period? And did they influence you, or maybe you influenced them?
Well, of course, we went to Paris. When Travis was head of the costume department at Paramount, he had it in his contract that he would have 6 weeks, twice a year, to travel to Europe. So when I took over in 1938, the studio sent me to Paris, and I went with Lillian Farley, I think the name was, a model. Her husband, Frank Farley, was head of the office in Paris for Paramount. And we had entree into all of the famous houses, Dior and Chanel, Balenciaga, and I soaked it all in. When I came back, I had my salon painted that, I would call it just a French gray couture. And I began wearing very simple clothes. as they do in the famous houses. I didn't want to upstage the stars I was dressing. You notice now I have color on my nails, but that's because we're going to the award ceremony later. But normally I wouldn't have any, because if you're doing a fitting, you don't want your hands to show in the mirror. You must really fade into the background. People always said the little Edie in the dark suit and the dark glasses. I would always make my magic on them.
It's fascinating.
Wonderful, just wonderful. And your cocktails sound divine. You know, I'm known for my margaritas also.
Oh, really? What do you put in yours?
But I'm even a better cook. You know? And I love starting with a margarita. Now, my secret is I always use fresh lime juice.
Yes, that's for brevity's sake, I used my bottle of key lime, but I do prefer the fresh lime juice as well, Edith.
Oh, I knew you would. And everybody appreciates it. And I say cheers to you on your wonderful book and your wonderful recipes.
Thank you. Cheers, Edith.
Next, Edith, I would like to present to you Benjamin, all the way from Germany. And Benjamin,
with the bow tie.
Yes.
Edith loves your bow tie. Benjamin is going to present Sophia Loren and a recipe from her.
Adore Sophia.
Thank you so much, and good evening from Germany. So good to be able to talk to you, Miss Head. Well, yeah, when I thought of you and a star you worked with, and also of the Oscars, I chose for Sophia Loren because I love Italian food and I just love her. And I chose a recipe. I just love the name of it. It's called spaghetti con pomodoro crudo, which means spaghetti or pasta with uncooked tomato sauce.
And you're wearing a red shirt. I love that.
Yes.
So, in fact, you have a bow tie. I would love for you to call me Edith.
Oh, thank you so much. What an honor. Thank you. Well, Edith, I can tell you what the recipe is about, if you like.
I would love that. We all would.
So the sauce is actually uncooked. It's with tomatoes, mozzarella cheese, a red onion, olives, capers, fresh parsley, oregano, salt and black pepper, and olive oil. And I made it in advance. So I think the ingredients, they go very well together when you leave it for like 24 hours or overnight. And then you cook the pasta to it. And this is what it looks like when it's finished.
Oh, it's beautiful. Al dente, of course.
Yes, al dente. And, you know, the smell is just, it's gorgeous. And I can imagine Sophia Loren sitting, ordering it with, you know, I like when she speaks with her hand. So this is very Italian to me. And I would like to know, when you first met her, she was so young. She was like, I think she was 23. Would you tell us about that?
Yeah. That she, you know, she was discovered when she was 19, really. Carlo Ponte met her when she was 19. And I adore Sophia. I adored her. So when I met her, as you said, she was, I think she was just 24. And she always spoke her mind, but she did it in such a charming way that you were always open to her suggestions. And she was and is a fabulous cook, and she loves to eat. Doesn't she? Loves Italian food. I can remember her coming to a fitting after a particularly noteworthy Italian feast, and Sophia was looking a little chubby. She came in, she slipped behind the screen, and she always had the most exquisite handmade Italian corsets. So this somewhat chubby person who came in revealed when she stepped out behind the screen that she was the voluptuous siren that she was. Now, in the houseboat, Cary Grant, he was 54 and she was 24. And originally it was designed, I don't know if you all know the story of it, but a socialite is mistaken and they meet at a concert, and Cary's character is a widower and he has 3 children. She's hired as a nanny. It was conceived as an American girl. So, of course, how do you dress an American girl on a boat? Well, in sweatshirts and jeans. I bring these sketches to Miss Loren, and she looks at them with somewhat of a horrified expression, but in her charming way, she says, Miss Head, I don't wear blue jeans. So I involved her. I said, well, what do you like to wear? What colors suit you? And she always liked colors that complemented her tiger eyes. I go back to the director. I say, Miss Loren says she does not wear blue jeans, and I agree with her. And it's not because she doesn't have a good figure. She has a sensational figure, but she doesn't wear blue jeans. After some persuasion, the director changed the part that she became an Italian socialite, and she was escaping from her overbearing father, and the movie progressed from there. After that, we became great friends. And of course, you want to know about the gold dress.
Oh yes, I saw this movie when I was a little boy for the first time, and I was just fascinated with this great golden dress, which was just gorgeous. And I know you have
and not the person in it.
Of course, yes.
Of course.
I wish to have a nanny like her. So when I was little.
We all do.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I would like to ask you about this golden dress, which was just amazing. And Sophia she's gorgeous in that.
She's gorgeous. Well, Sophia's gorgeous in anything. But in that dress, I used a fabric I hadn't used before, which is it's my first mistake. And it was a jersey, so it was fitted to her sensational body. And it was impregnated with 14 karat gold. I'm up in the salon, I'm doing another fitting. I get an emergency call, come down to the set of Houseboat immediately. I run down there, and there's Cary Grant, usually impeccable in his dinner jacket, entirely covered with gold. They had been dancing. The gold got all over Cary's jacket. I had to think on my feet, which is often the case. And I thought, well, let me call the paint department. Call the paint department, asked if they had a lacquer that was spray on to see if we could just spray and set the gold. They did. They came down, they delivered the spray gun. We did not even have to have Miss Loren disrobe. We sprayed it right on her, and it set the gold there. And Carlo was on the set that day. She goes up to him and she said, see, Carlo, you might think this is a dress, but it's not. I am like an Oscar. The gold is sprayed on. And the dress, they could dance the night away. And Mr. Grant was as impeccably dressed as we've come to know him in every single film. And that film, that set, that chemistry, it was sizzling there.
That's a great story. I love it. So since I'm allowed to call you Edith, I just like to know, did you notice that Cary Grant, he had a crush on Sophia during the shooting?
You can't have that kind of chemistry on the set without knowing that. And Carlo was aware of it too, and would send Sophia flowers. You know, they couldn't marry initially until he could get a divorce, a big scandal about that. But eventually they did, and he had a proxy stand in Mexico, and then they got married formally, and it was a love story. But I think that dress epitomized Sophia's philosophy. She said always, a dress is like a barbed wire fence. It serves a purpose, but it should never obstruct the view. And that dress obstructed no views.
That's a great line of hers. I also love her quote, everything you see, I owe to spaghetti. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And that lemon pasta dish she has is very famous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Delicious, just
Yeah.
delicious. And and she eats healthy. We all have learned that the way that Italians eat, the way the French eat, is very, very healthy because it's not processed food, right? Well, this has been one. Let me see that dish again.
Yes. So it's really delicious. It goes with, Parmesan cheese.
And do you
And
get
it's
a
very,
fresh and grate the Parmesan? Yeah, of course.
yes, right. And it's very easy to make. And it's, yeah, like it said, the sauce is uncooked and it's wonderful smell here. So I can really recommend to do it yourself.
Excellent. Well, that's beautiful. And the presentation is lovely.
Thank you so much.
Well, George,
Great talking
meet
to you.
you.
Thank you, Edith.
Thank you.
Now, Miss Head, I have to call Miss Head. I would like to present Krista Lawler from Indianapolis and from Indiana. And she is going to present Lana Turner.
Oh, Lana, my goodness. Is she a favorite of yours, dear?
Yes, one of them. Yes.
One of them.
Yes.
Smart answer.
Yes. I wanted to show my shrimp scampi for Lana. I would like to thank Peter Fuller and Jenny Hamilton, who wrote the book Supper with the Stars. They helped me quite a bit with this. I'd also like to thank my husband because he's the one that cooked it.
Shout out to Travis Lawler.
Hello, husband.
Yes. So I guess I wanted to ask
What are the ingredients, dear?
Oh, yes, of course. We have 16 large shrimps, 1/4 stick of butter or margarine, 1/4 cup of olive oil, 2 cloves of crushed garlic, 2 tablespoons of parsley, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper.
And you devein them and leave the tail on?
You do leave the tail on. Yes, you do leave the tail on. This is something, because I'm Italian, so some of this stuff when you were talking about Sophia Loren, I kind of got. Would be great, like with a fettuccine sauce, with a fettuccine noodle.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was very easy to make. It took
well, especially since your husband made it.
Well, I married
easy for you.
He did
credits from here.
Yeah. Did you know Lana was discovered when she was 15?
Yes.
In 1936. She and some of the Hollywood legend is that it was at Schwab's, but it wasn't at Schwab's. It was she was at the Top Hat malt shop and she was getting a soda. Well, you knew that, dear, right? Did everybody know that?
Yes, I knew that. I guess my main question was, there was a lot of rumor going around when you created her $1 million wardrobe for Love Has Many Faces.
Mm-hmm.
What I really liked about her outfits on that movie was they were so intricate and they were so full of jewels and like, was it heavy for her to wear that? Or, I mean, I couldn't imagine. You knocked it out of the park on that one. So I was.
Thank you, dear. We used to say we should call the film Lana Has Many Costume Changes because we certainly did. And we really captured the spirit of that, don't you think? The first film. I knew Lana socially, but she did very few things at Paramount. So the first film, which one that is?
Who's Got the Action?
Yes, it is. And who had the action?
Lana.
Lana always has the action, but Dean Martin was in it. And, although we knew each other socially, she actually canceled several of our fittings. And there were 18 costumes to create. Finally, when she came, I could see she was nervous and she wanted to get out of there. And I said, Lana, dear, I want this costume and all of the costumes to be the most beautiful costumes you have ever worn. This calmed her down. We had a great rapport, and perhaps the most challenging costumes in there were the negligees. Right? You know that, dear. Not
Well,
only.
when I was doing some research, when she was in Who's Got the Action, you made a $750 gown for her that she wears.
Yes, I'm going to tell you all about that.
Okay, good.
Yes, all about his most expensive night clothes I have ever made. And the reason was, there were several factors. One, it had to be tight-fitting to the Lana couture, her whole contour of her body. And also we had the censors to deal with. So it had to be alluring, but not vulgar. So we did a foundation, a proper foundation for it. The gown itself was the same type of lace you would use in a bridal gown. I had 2 linings, silk linings, and we dyed them to match Lana's skin tone exactly. So it was the illusion that she had nothing beneath, but she was fully covered, so the censors could not at all object to any of it. In truth, we made 2 of them, but it was like making 4 garments because of the foundation, 2 underlinings, and the gown itself. You know, and I have to say, Lana really is the epitome of what a star should be.
Great.
She is always picture perfect. She is always fashionable. When she steps out, you are brought back to what true Hollywood is all about. So I applaud Lana in everything she does. And she's very savvy about her clothes. And she adores shoes. Have you been at a shoe closet?
I've heard about that notorious shoe collection, and like how sometimes she had to par down when she would go on sets.
On occasion, but if she liked something, she bought it in every color. That was our Lana, and she is absolutely one of a kind. A good choice, and your recipe sounds divine. And what a wonderful husband you have to be such a great sous chef.
Well, I was a little concerned because of I can't personally eat shrimp, so he can. So I had him help me with it a little bit. So thank you, Miss, talking with me.
Thank you, my dear. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you.
Now, Miss Head, I would love to present to you Samantha Ellis. Samantha Ellis is making her debut on the Hollywood Kitchen Oscar special, and she's going to talk to you all about Grace Kelly.
Oh.
Hello, Miss Head. I am so excited to be here. I must say, I am a gigantic fan of yours, a gigantic fan of Miss Grace Kelly. She is really the first star whose filmography I completed so many years ago. She was like the first actress that I was obsessed with when it came to classic film. So I had to choose her for this because, to me, your collaborations with her, I think, are the perfect fashion marriage. I mean, you worked in 4 films together. The first, of course, being Rear Window. The gowns in that, I think, are just incredible. I have some pictures. This is probably my favorite on the cover of Grace Kelly, Hollywood Dream Girl. The black and white gown that she wears in.
And you know where that it was in the film, and you know what Hitch did with that when she.
I would love to hear.
So when she came in, it immediately, and clothes really in a film further the narrative. The minute Grace appeared, you knew she was a socialite. And we saw Jimmy in his pajamas and in his camera, and 2 different worlds. When she came in, Hitch slowed down the camera just enough. So it was like she was walking the catwalk, and she would flip on a light and flip on a light and flip on a light. And, you know, in film, much different than the theater or opera, you know, we designed for the close-up camera. Well, that neckline was perfect for the close-up camera. And immediately you knew this was a match of two different types of people coming together. So good choice on that.
So beautiful. And then, of course, next is The Bridges at Toko-Ri that you worked on for Grace and William Holden. And I love that one too. There's a beautiful one in this book that I have saved, a beautiful fur. Well, no, it's a satin. It almost looks like fur, but it's so dark, really beautiful. A little hard to tell maybe, but I love this gown so much. And then, of course, our next one is The Country Girl, which Grace so famously won her Academy Award for. Not only did you so famously dress her down in that film, you also did her Oscar gown for that, which is quite probably my favorite Oscar gown, many people's favorite Oscar gown, that gorgeous Duchess blue satin. Tell me about your collaboration with Grace on that gown. I would love to hear.
Well, it's really the collaboration on all of our films. You know, Hitch considered Grace to be the ultimate Hitchcock blonde. And because she was so beautiful, people treated her in a certain way. She would love coming over to my salon. She was absolutely perfectly educated, Bryn Mawr. She was a Philadelphia girl. We talked about not the film. We talked about life. We talked about art. We talked about literature. She could kick off her shoes and just be the girl that she is, you know. And so when we did Country Girl, you brought that up. It was one of my greatest challenges. I mean, how do you make Grace Kelly look plain?
Right.
A challenge, I'll tell you. And we decided for her red carpet, and she actually wore the dress 3 times. She wore it for the premiere of Country Girl. She wore it when we shot the cover of Life magazine, and she wore it to the Oscar when she won Best. And it was the most expensive. That fabric was $4,000 of gold. And that column dress with the elbow-length gloves, absolutely spectacular. So as she appeared, you saw the Grace Kelly that was grand and cool. But when she won, I don't know if you've seen the photographs, you see this smile, and that is the Grace Kelly I know. And I, of course, To Catch a Thief, is that one of your favorites also, my dear?
Yes, I was just about to bring that one up, just the Technicolor. I think the blue gown from that film is probably my favorite Grace Kelly dress of all of them. I was so heartbroken after seeing all of these gorgeous gowns in To Catch a Thief, especially that you unfortunately didn't design her wedding dress. I read that was designed by Helen Rose. I know, it breaks my heart.
I would prefer that you did not bring that up, my dear. Thank you.
I did want to bring it up only because I love the outfit you did design for her going away.
Going away suit. Well, I'll tell you that, you know, MGM, which was Grace's home studio, Helen Rose was the designer there, and they were going to underwrite the entire cost of the gown, tens of thousands of dollars. I guess a royal budget isn't as large as a Hollywood budget, but you know, it's very, very close with the royal family, with Monaco, received up there on many, many, many occasions. And you know, Grace, when we first met, you know, she was a model. She really knew how to wear clothes, and she always had white gloves. So when her daughters, Princesses Caroline and Stephanie, when they became of curtsying age, I gifted them with their own tiny pairs of white gloves in tribute to her mother's charming tradition. It's very ironic. Not one of my Academy Awards is for a film that I designed for Grace Kelly, but really, those films are probably some of my finest, absolutely finest work. Wouldn't you agree, Samantha?
I absolutely agree. I could not agree more. I think you should have won for all of them. And between you and I think you would have made a better wedding dress too.
Thank you, my dear. I appreciate it. Now let's see what did you make of
Yes. So I wanted to honor Grace. This recipe I got from Jenny Hammerton. Oh, about to fall off my plate. But it's called Pisat Lagier, and it's native to Monaco, which of course she ruled after 1956. And this recipe, I made the dough from scratch. It's almost like a pizza dough. With yeast and flour and water and sugar. And then the sauce is pretty much all caramelized onions, just tons and tons of onions, all caramelized together. And then I added some tomato puree. And on top, it's just some nice anchovies all laid out and some black olives. And it's a very traditional Monaco dish. So I thought that it would be so nice to honor her. This is her recipe for it. But she said that she got it from a local, one of her subjects. So I love that.
And probably her chef at the palace prepared it for her.
Exactly. She says it's delicious. I have not tried it yet, but I'm very excited.
Let's see.
So.
Try it.
Yes. Oh gosh. It's almost like a crackery pizza-y kind of crust.
You know, she first set eyes on the prince when we were filming To Catch a Thief.
Mm-hmm.
We teased we should rename the film To Catch a Prince. How is it?
It is delicious. Very, very salty.
Well,
that I will say. So salty, onion lovers, fish lovers, olive lovers, you will love this.
And are you all of the above, Samantha, or no?
It's a little salty for me. I've never tried olives before, or never tried anchovies before this, but I enjoy it. I'm definitely glad that I got to make it for Grace and for the Oscars.
Absolutely. It's a perfect choice. And look at your champagne glass.
Yes. I just have some lemonade in here, but
that's okay. We're working girls. So of course.
Later is when we'll start the champagne for the Oscars.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you, Samantha. And I love how your flowers complement your top. It looks beautiful.
Thank you. I did go for like a pink satin, not quite the blue of Grace, but close enough, I thought.
Yes. And you know, that color that we had the gown, it really just popped all over. And it was the first time that fashion was really on the cover of Life magazine, which really set a precedent.
That color just did wonders for her blonde. It was perfect.
Thank you so much, my dear.
Thank you so much. So nice to meet you.
It was lovely to meet you, Samantha.
Hey, Edith, Miss Head,
You may call me Edith. We've been together long enough.
Okay. Edith, I would now like to present, and you already know her, Barbara Boyd Doss.
Hello, Barbara, dear.
She's worked with you in your salon.
Yes.
Hello there. Oh,
Nice
I'm so
to
thrilled
see
to be
you.
here. Nice to see you again. Well, my star is Barbara Stanwyck, one of your top stars.
Yes.
And I made the recipe I made. I don't have it with me, but I will show pictures after the show. I made her filet of beef.
Oh.
So I think I've heard that Barbara was a big beef fan, usually beef tartare, steak tartare.
Yeah, she was known for that.
Not something that I would eat or make, but I made her filet of beef, and it was very simple recipe, which is why I chose it when Carrie sent it to me. Let me pull it up and I'll tell you about it. You have the filet skinned and larded. Now, I did not know what that meant. I didn't know what larded mean. I thought, do we just put it in lard or cover it with lard? But apparently there's a larding needle that you put fat in through the beef, because the beef of the generations past didn't have enough fat, and so they fattened it up a little bit.
And then that adds the flavor to it, of course.
Yes. So I didn't have that tool, but I cut some holes in the beef and I put some bacon fat in. They said that was an alternative. So it worked well. I cooked it in the oven and it came out pretty yummy, better than I thought it would. So I will show pictures of that. Definitely would recommend that recipe. So in tribute to my Barbara.
Of course. You know, the first film that I did with Barbara,
was it Lady Eve? Oh, I love it.
And Barbara Yeah, it's a wonderful film. Absolutely wonderful. Barbara possesses what some designers consider to be a fashion challenge. Barbara has a long waist, comparatively low rear end. So what I did was widen the waistbands on the front of her gowns. I narrowed them slightly in the back, and I took advantage of her long waist, and I created an illusion that her derriere was just as perfectly placed as any other star. Now, and she was a top star long before I got to her. She really was. But she had kind of a plain Jane frumpy look. And Lady Eve was a fashion film. It was filled with furs, evening sheaths, and diamonds. It was everything Barbara hated. And the first it was with the love scene she had with, what the hell was, what's his name?
Henry Fonda.
Henry Fonda, Jane's. Oh, he looks so divine in his dinner jacket. Probably how you two gentlemen look in a dinner jacket. And well, the gown, it was a tight-fitting black crepe. It was everything that Barbara hated. She complained about it incessantly until she turned toward the mirror. She saw herself. She was stunned. And it was at that moment that she fell in love with high fashion. And it was the beginning of a long and a happy relationship. She's really one of my best friends. I so enjoy her. I call her Missy. Do you know what Barbara calls me?
I don't remember.
Head. She called me Jughead. She always called me Jughead. It was because I was so serious. I seldom smiled, but that's because two of my front teeth never grew, and not the one smack in the middle, but on either side. It created this conspicuous gap. I always wanted to look like Shirley Temple, with curls and dimples and perfect teeth, and there I was with straight hair, thick glasses, and a smile like a beaver. Well, Barbara, in her tenacious way, she would try to do anything to get me to smile. Finally, she said, "Why don't you get your damn teeth fixed? People don't like people without teeth." So she literally yanked me into the car. She said, "We're going to the dentist to get you some front teeth." Ironically, it was the same dentist that kept Shirley Temple's smile so perfect.
Wonderful.
I gave Barbara her glamorous looks, and she gave me my smile.
Oh, that was a fair trade.
Yes. So now, she loved cooking steak, and with Robert Taylor and all, they would often, go out. Is that not? Are you a vegetarian, dear?
I'm not. No, I do like steak. I just wouldn't want to eat it raw. Yeah, it needs to be well cooked for my taste, but
excellent.
Yes,
and the recipe was easy for you to make?
It was very easy, very simple. Actually, Carrie provided it for me, and I don't remember which cookbook it came from, but Carrie will let us know that. But it looks like it was from the 1930s, possibly. There's a picture of Barbara.
Of 1934.
1934. Okay. Wonderful, nice. Wonderful.
Nice.
Well,
I think that black crepe dress from the Lady Eve, the two-piece, that's if I had to choose one favorite costume of Barbara's, that's my favorite. It's so beautiful.
It's absolutely spectacular.
It looked amazing.
Wear anything, and she actually, when she was in the film with Elvis in Roustabout, remember that? That was wonderful. That film introduced many people who would go see a Barbara Stanwyck film, but who would never, ever consider going to an Elvis film.
It crossed the generations.
Horrible in blue jeans, doesn't she?
Oh, she could wear anything.
Anything, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, you picked a wonderful person and one of my best friends, my Missy.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you had a nice friendship with her. That's fortunate for both of you. Did you work on all of her pictures after that, or
not all of
most of them?
Of course, as many, and we remained friends. We would often, if there was the event that called for it, we would go out. But when you work so closely with all of these major stars, there are very few who you would consider friends. And because I'm so discreet, of course, people love coming to the salon. I remember Lucille Ball saying, Edie knows all of our secrets, but she never tells.
That's so valuable. They probably didn't have that experience very often.
No. There's a great gossip that goes on all the time in Hollywood, and not that I don't enjoy it, but I never repeat it. That's the key.
That's very wise. Very wise.
So nice to see you today.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to see you too, Ms. Head. It's a pleasure.
All right, now, Ms. Head or Edith, I am presenting Danny Miller. Danny Miller is going to talk all about Ginger Rogers and Jello mold.
Ms. Head,
hello, Danny.
Hello, it's such an honor to meet you, and I am such a fan of your work. And I want to, before I get into the fabulous Ginger Rogers, I want to send greetings from a very dear friend of ours, the beautiful Miss Barbara Rush, who sends her love.
I love Barbara.
And I believe did she not present you with one of your Oscars?
Yes, she did. You're exactly right. You know.
I remember.
And did you know, I mean, Danny, you know, for the first 21 years of the Academy Awards, there was no category for costume design.
Which is so appalling.
Appalling.
Thank you for helping to rectify that ridiculous.
Yes. Barbara can wear anything also. She's stunning. She's a delight to work with. She's brilliant in everything she does.
I'm so happy to hear that, and I will pass that on. And of course, I will. And I am a huge fan of Ginger Rogers. Of course, I love her work with Fred Astaire, but I am particularly a fan of her later work as a solo performer. And let's talk briefly about the dish I made for her. Carrie was nice enough to find this amazing Ginger Rogers royal desserts recipe. Like Carrie, I am also a fan of Jello molds. It's so appropriate for the era. And I have been on Hollywood Kitchen, I think a dozen times now, and we've made some fairly complicated things with no problem. Ginger Rogers Jello mold was such a disaster for me, starting with the fact that Ginger suggested making this beautiful mold in an angel food cake pan. Great, I have one. I make angel food cake all the time. It has a removable bottom. I thought it was very secure. It's certainly never a problem for my cakes. And I poured the first layer, which was a very bright raspberry liquid warm Jello mixture. And it started, to my slow motion horror, I watched it all leak out all over the counter, into every drawer, on the wall, on the floor. My son was like, oh my God, what's happening? It looked like a crime scene. So, that was a disaster. And then I switched to my Charlotte pan, and I did make it, but it's 3 layers, and there is green on the bottom here. You can see it. It's kind of a mess because the second layer, which is lime gelatin, melted.
Tilt it a little bit so we can see it better. Without it, well, look, it moves like Jello.
It's nice and jiggling, but you can't see. Here, I'll move my raspberry. Well, when I cut it, you'll be able to see the green layer, but not my best moment on Hollywood Kitchen in terms of cuisine. But oh well, thank you, Ginger, anyway. And the first movie that I'd love to talk about, Billy Wilder's first as an American director, it's one of my favorite movies of all time, The Major and the Minor.
1942.
1942. And I have these pictures of you with Ginger.
Yes.
Including this one on the right, which is interesting because it's one of the few times I've seen a picture of you without your glasses. And so for people that don't know the movie, through a series of crazy events, Ginger has to pretend she's a 12-year-old girl. And I must say, and Ginger Rogers is one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood. And the fact that you managed to come up with this outfit, and it looks like there's a doll. I wanted to ask you, was there a doll manufactured with her wearing it?
We would often do small size to be able to show the stars what it would look like.
Oh, okay. It was a remarkable outfit that supposedly she goes in the bathroom and like cuts her stockings and does all these things, comes out as a 12-year-old, which is so fun. And I'd love to hear any stories you have of working with Ginger on that film. And Billy Wilder.
Well, in that film especially, dear, Billy requested and the film demanded that the change happen on screen.
Mm-hmm.
So Wally Westmore was hair and makeup, you know, the three magicians in Hollywood, hair, makeup, and costume. Now, it would have been no problem if she really went into a bathroom and then we could do our magic and then she would come out, but that's not how it was envisioned. So we sketched on how we could create that. Finally, Billy signed off on it. He liked it. Ginger absolutely created it perfectly. But all this came about after Kitty Foyle, really, after she won the Oscar, because then people began to take her seriously as an actress rather than just, which was a feat unto itself, Fred Astaire's dancing partner. So then she had a multi-film deal with Paramount. She went back to RKO, and then the next film, of course, we did was
Lady in the Dark.
Lady in the Dark.
Which is so amazing. I saw a blazing nitrate Technicolor print of that a few years ago in Hollywood that like hurt your eyes. It was so vibrant. And I must say, there are scenes in that film I thought like someone slipped LSD into my concessions or something, because it is crazy. But of course, the most famous dress from that you did, and I'd love to hear more about it, is the crazy red fur-lined dress. And I remember mink lined.
And I picked out matching pelts so that the mink would be, and then Mitch Leeson, he wanted the dress covered in glass, rubies, and emeralds. We manufactured, he considered himself to be a designer and a production designer. The dress weighed 15 pounds. Ginger could barely walk, let alone dance. And what's the point if Ginger can't dance? And so we had to redo it all in red and green sequins. That dress was the most expensive, $35,000 for that dress. And it had that slit up the center, you know, so it showed off Ginger's legs. It was just a wonderful, wonderful dress. I love Ginger.
I even found, and I didn't even realize I had this till this morning, a framed picture of her in the dress in the wider, it's a circus scene. The movie, she has psychoanalysis in the film. She's right. Nervous breakdown. It's one of the most unusual films I've ever seen. And it's definitely worth seeing, especially for your costumes. And I would say in all your films that you worked on, the costumes play a pivotal role, but.
Well, and who did the stage version?
Oh, wasn't it Kurt Weill was involved?
Yes, Gertrude Lawrence did the stage version of it. So people were going, is Ginger ready to be able to create this multifaceted, multi-dimension character? And she certainly was. She was absolutely a wonderful, and is a wonderful actress.
Fantastic. And also co-stars with Ray Milland as she did in The Major and the Minor. And one last thing I want to ask about The Major and the Minor, because there's a scene. So she's little Susu Applegate, meets Ray Milland on the train. He thinks she's 12. And but she starts to fall in love with him. So but he's engaged, this horrible woman played by Rita Johnson. But anyway, there's a scene at a dance where she's going to really doll herself up to show what she really looks like. Doesn't work out so well. But that outfit and that transformation, and she's wearing some kind of chiffon thing on her hair. And I've never seen her more beautiful in my life than that scene. I wish I had a picture of that.
And we could collaborate, you know, the famous House of Westmore, you know, with Wally, and we really collaborated on every aspect of that. So you have excellent taste there. You know, Ginger lives just right up the hill from me. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah. I did not know that.
On Coldwater Canyon, right up the hill. It's a funny story is that she got an invitation. She said, Edith, do stop by. I'm having some friends drop in between 5 and 8. Well, between 5 and 8, what do you think the attire is? Cocktail, of course, sure. Right? That would make good sense. So I wear a little black cocktail dress, a white hat, white gloves, go up to the house, knock on the door. She opens the door. She's dressed in gingham, and she shrieked. She said, oh, Edith, didn't I tell you it was an ice cream party? Oh, no, she hadn't told me. I took off my hat. I took off my gloves. I concocted something at the soda fountain, which Ginger made me eat. But that Ginger, she is one of the best figures in Hollywood, but she loves her desserts. Are you going to cut into your Jell-O mold?
You know, I can, if you like to see.
Let's look at that.
Yes, I want you to see. I want to see if there is a second layer. It's called a rainbow dessert, and my rainbow got a little.
So your rainbow is green and red?
Well, it was supposed to be green, yellow, and red, but yes, here we go. And
so it could be a Christmas Jell-O mold with green and red.
Oh, you know, I'm cutting
Jell-O, Danny. Let's meet up this week.
Okay. You know what? I do see the yellow. It's a miracle. Do you see that?
Oh, yes.
All right, it worked after all.
It worked.
I'll taste it. She puts coconut on it, which I found unusual as well, but very good. My son just got braces on Friday, so he'll enjoy being able to eat it.
Well, there's not going to be any left after Charles gets done with it. I might as well just.
Well, this has been wonderful. You're so knowledgeable about things, and I so appreciate that.
Oh, well,
you may call me Edith also.
Thank you, Edith. I am such a fan of yours and of Ginger Rogers, and my new bucket list is being invited to an ice cream party at Ginger Rogers' house.
I know. Make sure you don't make the mistake I made.
I don't think I will, but I'm going. I can't wait to go. And thank you. I'm going to be watching all the films we've talked about today very soon.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Edith. Now I would like to present the incredibly talented singer and diva, Mary Stanford, who will be talking about one of our favorite divas, Elizabeth Taylor.
Hi, Ms. Head. It is just such an honor to meet you. Carrie's told me so much about what wonderful time she had on the episode that you did together previously. It's a wonderful episode. I so loved your stories on that episode. And just delighted to be able to talk about Elizabeth Taylor, who I love, and to talk about your relationship with her. There's so much to say. I know.
You look so beautiful. What type of singer are you, dear?
Oh, I sing whatever you have, but I sing musical theater, cabaret. I perform with big bands. I love keeping that old music alive and keeping alive the stories behind the music too.
Oh, excellent. You know, people don't associate me with musicals, but I did probably one of the most iconic musicals where that red and green Jell-O would work perfectly, and that would be
White Christmas.
White Christmas. Of course.
I absolutely love your dresses for White Christmas. I'm obsessed with them a little bit, actually.
Well, lovely.
Yes, and you know, you did do several musicals. Not to veer away from our topic of Elizabeth Taylor, but you did do several musicals. And as somebody who performs in musicals, I don't think people realize how much of a skill there is in being able to design clothes that are danceable, that move well when you dance.
See this sketch? Do you know what this is from?
That looks very familiar.
Sweet Charity.
Sweet Charity, that's right. Another musical that I am obsessed with the dresses in.
And I did the film of Anything Goes with Mitzi Gaynor, of course.
Yes, I hope people will go and watch these films if they're not familiar with them, or even just go watch them again with a new eye towards looking at the clothes this time.
Yes.
But I do want to talk about Elizabeth Taylor. So I'm going to present my recipe first. Okay. So I have a recipe that's my version of something that came from her book, Elizabeth Takes Off, which is a diet weight loss book that's actually very sensible. And there's some wonderful recipes in there. This recipe started out as the egg salad recipe in this cookbook. But that particular recipe, the way that it was presented, I can best describe it as a deconstructed egg salad. And I don't think that we really need to have deconstructed egg salads. So since this is an Oscars party, and I have friends coming over this evening for a nice soiree, I put together my version of that recipe using the ingredients. These are deviled eggs a la Elizabeth Taylor.
Oh, they're beautiful, dear. The presentation is lovely.
Thank you, Ms. Head. See, I thought, well, we're talking with Edith Head. You must present things elegantly. And what's fun about this is that not only is it an elegant recipe, they're actually curried, and there's some watercress, and there's a little kick. There's a little sassy, much like Elizabeth Taylor was. Beautiful, but also a lot going on underneath. And I have to say, I am a little bit late to the party in appreciating Elizabeth Taylor, and I'm a bit embarrassed about that. Carrie and I have talked about, we're going to do a whole very deep dive episode soon to talk about her life, because there's so much to talk about. But it was only recently because of the podcast, History Chicks podcast. I want to give them a nice shout out to thank them for doing this. They did a 3-part episode about Elizabeth Taylor's life. And I heard new facts that I had never really heard about her, and how wonderful she was as a person, not just as a movie star, not just as an actress. And it made me go back and reassess everything. So, but Ms. Head, you knew her so well. And I can sit here and jabber on about what I think about her, but I want to know all about the stories that you have, because I know you were very close.
Very close.
We're still
very close.
Would you tell me about, I know there was a special necklace
I'll tell you about that. But when I first met her, she presented, when she was 17, the first ever Best Costume Design Oscar. She was 17. And as we talked about earlier, I worked tirelessly to get our profession recognized. First 21 years of the Academy Awards, there was no category. So, of course, I was nominated for a period piece, The Emperor Waltz, wonderful set to turn of the century, Vienna, and a very interesting fact. It was snowing in Hollywood on the night of that Academy Award.
We almost had that happen just now.
And being a superstitious woman, I should have taken that snow as an omen, but I was too busy going over my acceptance speech. Well, I was quite certain I would win. I deserved it for longevity, if nothing else, besides my costumes were really the best of any of the nominated pictures. The only real competition was Dorothy Jenkins for Joan of Arc. But come on, really? Ingrid Bergman's sackcloth and suits of armor winning over my Viennese finery. So Elizabeth is up there presenting, and I make sure bangs are camera ready, and she announces the nominees, and she opens the envelope and she names the winner, Dorothy Jenkins for Joan of Arc. I tell you, losing the Academy Award, but that was one of the greatest disappointments of my life. But, as you intimated, I've remained very good friends with Elizabeth. She often stays up at the house when she's between husbands. I have a sign over my guest room. It says, Elizabeth Taylor sleeps here. And of course, all the absolutely magnificent costumes, Place in the Sun. That must be a favorite of yours. It was my.
It is actually my prom dress when I was in high school was as many women's have been in the past was based on that.
Yeah, I know that costume was redone. And what did they say in the trade? They knocked it. What is it? Knocked it up. Knocked it off, and it was mass produced. It's a young friend of mine. He called me. He went to a very swank Hollywood party. He called me to say, Edie, you'll never guess, but at that party, I danced with 37 Elizabeth Taylors. But that dress is timeless. And that's the sign of good fashion. And you asked about the necklace?
Yes.
Elizabeth adores this necklace. These are French and British theater passes for the aristocracy. They're ivory, they're rimmed in gold, 300 years. They're like a season ticket, for the opera or Drury Lane. She has offered me extravagant amounts of money for it. Anyone can have diamonds. No one can have this necklace except me, but Does everyone here promise that they won't tell? Even if you
Not
had
word.
lunch? I have left Elizabeth this necklace in my will.
Oh,
So, I know. She would come when she was a girl. She would come to the commissary and she would always say, "Oh, tighter, Miss Head," and I'd cinch it in tighter. And then we would go to the commissary after and she would say, "Oh, Miss Head, tell me about Marlene Dietrich. Tell me about Carol Lombard." She didn't realize she was going to be bigger than any of those stars. You know, she really is a magnificent in every single way. And she loves her animals, which I also love so much. You know, I must disagree with her critics. I think she has aged gracefully. I mean, she looks lovely when she's plump and stunning when she slims down. A faulty figure can be corrected by the proper foundation, the use of light and dark color, but no face can ever be created by a makeup artist that would equal Elizabeth. She is absolutely exquisite. Without question, she is the most beautiful woman I have ever costumed. And Carrie, dear, are there other questions that maybe some of our viewers have sent you?
Yeah, Krista, would you be able to help moderate the questions? Because they just never pop up on my my phone.
I have time for maybe one or two before we have to run off.
We do have one.
Okay,
We do have one. Craig Marquis, Miss Head, wanted to ask you your recollections of working with Doris Day.
Oh, don't you love Doris? Talk about all-American girl. Doris, and she was a very unlikely Hitchcock blonde in The Man Who Knew Too Much. She wasn't cool, she wasn't icy. She was all-American, like apple pie. And so when she came in for a fitting, you know, Hitch is very, very particular. You get a Hitchcock script, it gives you the color of the costume, whatever. And I designed her clothes to fit a doctor's wife. And Doris gave me one of the greatest compliments. She said, "You know, Miss Head, I would never wear this, but my character would. And isn't that the sign of a great costume design? Coming from one of the greatest stars ever, the wonderful Doris Day." Well, this has been such a delight, I have to say. I don't know when I have enjoyed an Oscar Sunday afternoon as much as being with all of you.
Well, it's been a tremendous honor to have you, Edith. We are all so grateful. Do any of my panelists or presenters have any questions for Miss Head?
I do have a couple more that came in after. Doug Grieve asked and I know you talked about this a little bit when we were talking about Sophia Loren. Your work with Cary Grant.
Oh, Cary is amazing, and he has such a great fashion sense. He can wear anything, but a great fashion sense. So when we were doing Houseboat, you know, some of it took place at a country club. And so I would ask him his opinion about the fabrics that the women would wear, and I would get his opinion on that. And he had impeccable tailors, but he always listened to my ideas. Archibald Leach, right? We know him. Cary Grant. So a wonderful, wonderful gentleman.
Okay. Anybody else, Krista?
Yes.
Hold on a second.
One more. Okay, so Jack Fields asked if there was, I know you talked about this a little bit when we talked about Elizabeth Taylor, if there was any comment on some of Elizabeth's famous jewelry collection?
Oh, of course. Does anyone remember 1970 when Elizabeth was presenting that gorgeous dress I designed? Richard had given her a small token of his affection. She was a presenter. I think it was the first time I designed a gown to go around an accessory. albeit a 69-carat diamond accessory. But isn't it amazing, with all the jewels she has, the one thing that has eluded her is this necklace. I have to say, I think you all are fabulous. And you know, one of my mottos is you can have and be anything you want in life, as long as you dress for it. And I'm sure all of our nominees, presenters, and all of you will be dressed for the occasion, and you will all look and be winners. So thank you all. It's been a delight to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
guys
you
so
so
much.
much.
And keep sticking around for more food, fun, and film history from Hollywood Kitchen. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye. We'll see you on the red carpet.